So before we had our brief break, we talked about our reviews of the week. Blackout Tuesday recommended some really cool music that you guys can check out that they still have available that's important to the cause, as well as dissecting the latest episode of Insecure. And we had a lot to say about that. So now we're actually going to move into our hot topic of the week, which is, it's crazy to think about because I think on last week's episode, we talked about the death of George Floyd.
Yeah.
That girl.
Technical difficulties.
We're back.
As if I'm new to this.
Tied up her bootstraps.
Yeah. So last week in our review, we actually spoke about George Floyd's murder, and since then,
a whirlwind has happened.
so much has happened.
Protesting. The police officers all involved have.
Well, let's break it down, Jazz.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm talking about in the very
There's
beginning.
a lot.
Stuff
There's
is
a
so
lot.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, since George Floyd's murder, all 4 officers have now been arrested.
As of yesterday, I believe all of them.
Yes, as of yesterday.
Yep. Mhm.
So they arrested Derek Chauvin, the officer whose knee was actually on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
They upgraded his charges yesterday as well to second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. And the other 3 officers are going to be charged with
Aiding.
second-degree, aiding and abetting second-degree murder and manslaughter. So that right now is a win. However,
That's huge. That is huge.
like, it's really big.
Not
However,
only are they sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
The reason why, and I'm sure you guys already know this, but it's not very often that police officers are arrested for things like this, let alone how quickly this has happened. And everyone involved. So this is huge, you guys. Really huge.
However, I do want to say, just because they are arrested,
Right.
do not let up and do not tune it out. Because what the African American community knows all too well is that there are charges, and yes, right now they've been arrested, but
Will they get indicted?
will they actually be sentenced, and will they actually do any jail time?
Right.
So I'm anxious to see
It's a tip of the
what's
iceberg.
going to come in the coming weeks. Also, so I guess before all of that happened, the death of George Floyd kind of caused riots and protests across the nation, actually.
Mhm.
At this point, every state has held a protest to call for justice for George Floyd and others that have been lost to police brutality, including Breonna Taylor.
Absolutely.
And not to mention Ahmaud Arbery as well. But when all of this happened Thursday night, so essentially Thursday night, Minneapolis went up in flames.
Yeah.
There were protesters, they were looting, they were
burning down
buildings.
buildings.
They burnt down a Target because Target said they weren't going to help protesters or sell them milk for their protest.
They burnt the police precinct.
Yep.
They burnt that down. That's crazy.
And there was a lot of stuff surrounding that. Like there were, there were reports of there being, police planted in that. They were kind of like agitating the situation.
Right. All kinds.
So a lot of craziness ensued. And so we're watching the news Thursday when all of this is going on, and we actually were able to watch it live. And, Donald Trump, in true Donald Trump fashion, decides he's going to put out a tweet to address it.
2 tweets.
And in that tweet, he referred to the protesters as thugs,
Mm-hmm.
and also finished it off by quoting a police chief from Miami, from the Miami Police Department, Walter E. Headley, from the 1960s, saying that once the looting starts, the shooting starts. I want to run that back. Once the looting starts, the shooting starts. First of all, I don't think that we should be repeating and or reusing any quotes from racist police chiefs from the 60s. Like when this police chief said this, it was during like 1967 when the civil rights bills were being passed.
Right.
We are in 2020. How how I just think it's so like it's time for us to evolve as a country. And I think that he is really stuck in 1960, Donald Trump is. And so it's just kind of like, can we ditch this dude? Because he's not the hope, the change, or anything that we need to move our country forward. He's just really setting us back.
He's not necessarily he's not being a leader.
Oh.
He's not leading. He's got no sense of leadership. And that's what we're lacking right now. And if anything, how he's been speaking or, kind of talking to us about the situation, it's making me a little bit more nervous.
Well, everyone's going to have that opportunity in November, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying.
Everybody, I want to get on like 5 different topics right now.
Right.
He hasn't been a leader through this outbreak. He's been making jokes. He's put the blame on China when at the end of the day, Trump, we have the coronavirus right here in our own home.
And it needs to be dealt
with.
with.
You need to be figuring out what we need to do, not putting it back on China.
Because that doesn't do anything for what's happening here.
Okay? Stop making jokes and stop playing about our lives. Secondarily, you cannot put out on the internet that you are willing to use force against American citizens. To say that once the looting starts, the shooting starts is terrifying. And I doubt that anyone that would be shooting looters is actually discerning between who's peacefully protesting and who's there for nefarious reasons.
Right.
It's dangerous. And after he said that, we watched it get even more dangerous. There were people, good old boys, coming down with their AR-15s, people in Bellevue, out there with their 16-year-old children guarding their block. Like, this is insane.
And that's all because, and that stuff was also led, like, we had people out here, like, protecting their neighborhoods because there was this false rhetoric or tweet put out talking about let's take back our neighborhoods, let's reclaim our neighborhoods and all of this, like take back what's ours. And people took that literally and were actually armed out in like residential areas like this.
It felt like
unnecessary.
The Purge or a civil war
completely unnecessary and unrelated to what is going on. Like literally these people are instilling fear for no reason.
Exactly. And that's what Trump is doing. And then he incites fear and then goes dark and hides in his bunker in the White House
while DC is rioting literally outside of their front lawn.
We can just all say right now he's not handling this well, and anybody who wants to argue otherwise, come see me because it's a mess. He's not doing anything for anybody. He hasn't made America great again. And in November, everybody needs to use their right and they need to vote because he has got to go. We can't do this for another 4 years.
So moving on
to more facts.
So because of the outrage across the nation and the number of protests and the increasing, violence and whatever, sorry, not whatever, because that's very real and very serious. Many states have imposed curfews, or many large cities were imposing curfews to kind of help regulate the number of people that are coming and going and causing destruction and things like that. And I'm not even going to lie, that was kind of terrifying.
And can we just talk about the whole like alert that they send out?
So it's like an Amber Alert on your phone, and it makes this horrible
screeching sound
noise, and that
in and of itself
is alarming.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
It's that is within itself is alarming. But the first day that we were notified of it, we had just come back from the protest, so thank God we were back in a vehicle safe and ready to go. But we got the notice minutes after the curfew was set, and that was just kind of scary to me because
we were still out on the streets, and we don't know exactly what the consequences are.
Yes,
but we need to get home ASAP.
Yes, and so that was and then as soon as we got home, again, we continued to watch it unfold, and it was really sad to see what happened in Seattle, because I just really feel like other parties came in and really turned it into something that was really ugly and missing the message. And so And because of that, we had those curfews. And throughout the week, there has been more and more organized marches and protests in which have been peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got notice last night that because the curfew they said was supposed to last until Saturday, and they actually got word, who told us last night that they removed it and that we can continue to protest peacefully as long as it remains peaceful. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like it's kind of reassuring, or it's like, okay, see, like, we can do this. We're not
Exactly.
we're not just out here to cause fear and destruction, like this is actually a very good cause that we're out here trying to do, and thank you for letting us do that. And so it's kind of like, see, we can do this without causing destruction. Oh, cool. You guys won't have a curfew anymore.
It feels like we're children.
No, literally, like they took something away from us. Oh, and for good behavior, we are now rewarded. That's kind of what that feels like.
I would also just like to bring up a couple of other situations. So as you guys all know, Breonna Taylor was murdered in her own home while she was asleep. We talked about this a few episodes ago when we talked about 4 other murders in the month of May outside of George Floyd's. If you haven't checked that episode out, please do. But Breonna Taylor was from Louisville, and I just want it to be known that no arrests have been made in her murder.
No.
And everybody's on like administrative leave, and I think that some charges need to be brought at least for negligence.
Well, and here's
the minimum.
Here's the thing too. So her boyfriend was actually, he shot back because intruders, the situation. But I read somewhere that he's actually facing charges for opening fire on the department or the police force. So that to me is so backwards.
Yeah,
because look at the situation at hand.
I feel like their gun laws are different out there. I feel like if an intruder enters your home, you can't shoot. And they did not say who they were. So how was he to know that he was shooting at police officers?
Exactly.
At the end of the day, a citizen, an innocent citizen's life was lost because of them and their negligence. And they weren't even supposed to be there. At the end of the day, they were at the wrong house.
Right.
So they were not in the right at all. The moment that they went through that door, they were not right.
So I definitely want there to be more. I want there to be more footwork done in this. I do want there to be justice, or something. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed and looked at thoroughly for what it was, because we get it. It wasn't intentional.
Yes.
It was an accident, and you can say that, but also hold accountability for your actions.
I think that that's the larger message.
Be accountable.
We're not holding our police officers, our police departments to a higher standard. They are supposed to be the ones that serve and protect us. We want good cops. We want cops that have no racial bias. So at the end of the day, cops shouldn't really be killing folks, okay? And I think that they need to own up to that.
I mean,
you did something bad.
Looking at police forces across the country, across the world, even not a lot of them are armed. Not everyone is armed. If they can do it and they can police that way, why can't we? Or why is that not something that it's just
because America wasn't built that way. But yes. So I just wanted to bring that up. I also wanted to bring up that Sean Reed, who was murdered on Facebook Live about a month ago at this point. There's been no movement that I can find on the investigation surrounding that and what they're doing with the officers that are involved in that. I do know that the officer that made the really inappropriate comment, he's been put on leave. I don't know if he was actually fired or just put on leave, but he's not working right now. But I think that we need to be talking about all of these situations and giving it the coverage and the attention that that George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery are getting.
Because as you can see, once you apply pressure and you hold these people accountable and you press them, they will be then forced to take action.
Yes.
It's working.
Yes.
It's working.
And I also want to, tag on to that. Do not let up.
Don't.
Once these people are arrested and we start holding them accountable, we then need to move to policy reform. we need to be doing more. Okay. We need to be thinking ahead of the future.
Right.
I mean, that's just one thing that we could have done better with coronavirus. We saw China have it months before us, and
we were not proactive.
We sat on it. Okay. We've seen this for years. Okay. But right now we have the world's attention. So do not let up, and let's start moving to the next phase. Okay. Our friend Sonora actually reached out to us to put together a video of 22 ideas of ways that we can reform policy today. You can send these ideas to your representative, and we have all that information for you.
So just check our Instagram, our personal Instagrams, as well as the Ways Instagram and our Facebook page. We have shared it everywhere. It's accessible. Check it out. And it's not a perfect list. It's not a complete list. Feel free to add to it if you guys have any ideas as well.
We would love to hear you guys' ideas as well. Please share it with your friends and family who feel like they don't know where to start or they don't know what to do. We've got you covered because we want this fixed today.
Yes.
That's really the hot topic for the day, you guys. I actually feel a lot better about the hot topic, because I feel like I'm moving on the other side of all of this.
True.
I was really upset and angry and just kind of like filled with rage.
I mean, there was, we talked about it, and kind of like this weekend, we played a lot of The Sims, and that's just because it was kind of a way to disconnect. We were very overstimulated with what was going on our phones and on the TV, and just, you can't go anywhere without people even mentioning it, So it's just, it's really exhausting. And then on top of that, trying to explain systematic racism to people who don't understand it. And, it's just, it's a lot. It's taken a toll on us. And so we knew that this was something that we wanted to talk about. We knew this was going to be an important topic for us to touch on, but I don't think we necessarily knew how it was going to make us feel going through it all. But you're right. We've had some time now, more time to process it and deal with it. And we've taken action on our end. And I feel like that within itself is really kind of like, it makes me feel like I'm doing something towards the cause.
And that's the big part for me. I personally never feel like I do enough. And so this time I'm like, for me, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything that I can to make my voice heard. We have a platform, so we're going to do that.
We're going to try to amplify our voices as best as we can.
Yeah.